Hey everyone, it's Tiffany Shree, and today I'm going to be doing a chatty get ready with me. Quite a few of y'all have asked for more stories, even more stories from when I worked at the adult store in the past, so I'll put links in the description bar down below. I posted a video before about why I quit working at the adult store. I posted a video answering some frequently asked questions from that original video, and I also posted a video about banned customers, aka like wankers as we call them, like people who expose themselves in the store. Today I'm going to be telling you some more stories while I get ready. So if some of you have already seen the why I quit working at the adult store, then you will remember that there was a cinema in both stores that I worked at. They were big, like a few big screens where people could like watch DVDs. And then there were individual booths as well where you could like flip through multiple DVDs and whatever people wanted to do in there, like as long as it wasn't solicitation or filming, then it was whatever. I mean, as far as we knew, they were going there to watch the movies. Now, majority of the time, it was actually men who would go down there. It was very rare for a woman to go down, very rare. Men would call all the time and they'd ask if there were any girls there, but it was just an open theater and a lot of straight and gay men went down there, especially on their lunch breaks. Monday through Friday lunch breaks, that was pretty interesting. Actually, one time a police officer left his wallet in the theater, so my boss kind of had a giggle going down to the cop station and being like, hey, I own the adult store down the road and I found this in my theater. Another thing is that we never hired anyone to go down. No one was ever paid to be in the theater. No one was ever hired to go down there. We didn't have like girls or dancers or like, I don't know what people thought. I just got reminded of a couple other stories, but those of us who worked in the store, we were never supposed to go down into the theater during work hours. We would go there before we opened, and then the cleaner would go when we closed. My point is, it was extremely rare for a woman to be down there. One time I was working and I got a phone call from a woman, and I could hear immediately in the background there was a woman crying, and the woman on the phone said she was asking about our theater. I told her for men it was $10 to get in at a certain period of time and $15 afterwards. For women it was free because there were never any women, and so they always wanted to encourage women to go down there, I guess. She started asking me about like the legalities and the liability, and I told her like, look, it's just a theater. As far as we know, like you are just going to watch the movies. I did tell her though that we did provide 2 little sachets of lube and 2 condoms. So she told me the reason she was calling was because her sister's husband had gone downstairs to use our facilities, and this is her words. Well, I guess it's actually her sister's husband's words. Apparently, one of the women that we had hired to go down there had sprayed onto him and given him an STD, which he had passed on to his wife, her sister. I told her, look, you must be confused, or I'm not really sure what to tell you, because number one, we don't have people hired, we don't have women hired to go down there. It is extremely rare for a woman to go down there, so if he would have had any interaction with anyone downstairs, it most likely would have been another man, and we provide condoms. So she started replying to me saying like, what do you mean? So there's only guys who go down there. So are you saying that he was with another man? And then I could hear the wife in the background. She was like crying even harder. She was like, what do you mean? What are they saying? And I repeated myself. I said, look, I promise you I've worked here for years. Like, it's mostly men. It's very rare that there's a woman. We don't have women hired anyway. So either he's talking about another place or you need to double check his story. And the wife just started crying even crazier, and the woman just hung up. She was like, okay, thank you, bye. Maybe he contracted an STD and then passed it on to his wife, unfortunately. So that sucks. I just met the most interesting people working there. Like, I swear, everyone was so interesting, and a big part of working there is you had to be very respectful and be very open-minded and open to education. So one of the women who did happen to go down there, she actually would go there on her own. And it was funny because a lot of the guys would come up and complain about her. Like, a lot of the gay guys would come up and be like, she keeps asking to hook up with me, and she keeps asking me to, how can I say this? She keeps asking us to do things with her without using a condom. And they were like, she's nice, but it's annoying. And I guess there were other guys that she would hook up with in the theater. But then she came up and told us that the reason she would do that is because her and her husband had a, I feel like this video is gonna get demonetized like so quick. Her and her husband kind of had like a power play situation going on. He would request that she would come home after like hooking up with all these guys without using a condom so that he could go down on her with the remnants of the other guys after they had hooked up. Does that make sense? I feel like I need to write this down, not on YouTube, because I don't want to be getting in trouble. But yeah, so if that makes sense, she would go to the cinema, want to hook up with guys without a condom so that she could carry the remnants home and he would go down on her. Yeah? So there is a moment that I will never forget, and it's nothing like crazy raunchy, but we sold a lot of clothes to dancers or strippers, and whenever they came in, because it was for work and we wanted to keep those customers coming back, because that's part of retail, is like keeping a revolving door with the customers, we would offer them a 10 to 15% discount based on if it was for work, so like shoes, costumes, that kind of thing. And on our little sheet, we would always have to write down like the store that they were from, like where their place of work was, so that we could just keep track of like where our demographic was for dancers. And this girl came in and she was trying on these shoes, and granted, there were some shoes we had that weren't necessarily like, you wouldn't look at them and think like, oh, that's for a dancer at a strip club. And there was an older woman who worked with us. She was like the mama hen of the workplace, and she was such a good salesperson. Granted, she did lie a few times. Like there were times where she'd be like, oh, me and my husband use this all the time. And I was like, what? I would always see her sell shoes to dancers, and she'd always find a way to be so organic with the way she'd be like, you'd have to nab it. You couldn't just straight up ask someone like, are you a stripper? She would be like, oh, you must be a dancer, like you have dancer's legs, like blah blah blah. So I was trying to emulate that. I was trying to take a page out of her book. So this girl, she tried on these shoes. They were like bordello sparkly shoes, beautiful. I was checking her out, I was bagging up her shoes, and I was calculating the price, the 15% off, because I thought she was a dancer. And I said, oh, can I just get where you work? And she was like, why? And I said, for your discount. And she was like, what discount? And I said, well, we give dancers discounts, like, you know, so based on where, we just need to write down like the club that you work at. And she goes, I'm not a dancer. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pull a line from that woman's book and try to compliment her and like sound nice about it. But what I said was, oh, I'm so sorry, you look like a stripper. And her face got so red, and she was like, oh. And I immediately was trying to save myself. It was like word vomit. I was like, no, I mean, not saying that's a bad thing. Like if you were a stripper, I would want to see you because you're so pretty. Not that I want to see you naked. And I was just trying to like get all the words, but I was like, come back, like don't. But it was too late. It was too late. The words came out. Her face was like getting redder by the second, and she was just like not making eye contact with me, and I just like threw the shoes in the bag, and I was just like, here, like, I'm sorry. Focus, focus, don't screw up, don't screw up. So one of the store locations was near a whole bunch of clubs and pubs, and I feel like some of the clubs were very strict with what they wanted guys to wear, or girls as well, but they were more strict with men. But if guys were wearing certain types of shoes, they wouldn't let them in. If they were wearing certain types of tops, they wouldn't let them in. So one time this group of guys come into the store and they're like, do you sell shoes? And I'm like, well, like heels. Like we sell dancer shoes, we sell like heels, like we don't really sell shoes for men, or at least like men who want to be in flats, you know what I mean? And anywhere else he could go to potentially buy shoes was closed. So he was pretty desperate, and I happened to be wearing some knockoff Converse at the time. Like I had just gotten some from Kmart, and they were just like really cheap, like $15 ones. He looks at my feet and he was like, what size shoe are you? And I was like, well, I'm a 9.5 women's. And he was like, can I please try on your shoes? And I was like, I need my shoes. And he offered to pay me $50 for my shoes. And I was on the phone with one of my best friends who was working at the other store, and I was like, dude, this guy wants to buy my shoes for $50. And she was like, sell them, like freaking sell them, like get some money. And I was like, but I won't have any shoes. And she was like, who cares? Like you're only gonna work until, like I was working a graveyard shift, and so she was like, you're gonna leave before anyone wakes up and you're just gonna go straight home. So I made $50 and sold him my shoes. And I literally got on the train with freaking socks on. Like I probably looked like a grub. Like, so one of my really best friends who also worked at the store with me has watched these videos, and she commented that I was making it sound a lot nicer than it was. And if we wanted to turn on the air conditioning at one of the stores, he like rigged it himself so that there was this exposed wire and then a like a power point or like a outlet plug that was just hanging from these wires, and then it was like a key, and we had to stick this key in and turn it. But every time we did that, because it was like exposed wires, we would get zapped. I think I'm gonna just speed through the rest of this because I have more stories, but I want to save them for another video because one of these stories is pretty intense. Alright guys, so that's it for today. Remember to check the description bar down below for those other stories, and please give this video a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe because it means so much to me and it really lets me know what kind of content you guys like. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!